All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the RPG Backlog. We are diving further into Final Fantasy II. Last episode, we kind of went through the beginning, first three sections, ended at Bafsk Cave. And then this week, we went to places that are easier to pronounce. The Snow Cavern, Kashuan Keep, and the Dreadnought, which was a huge airship. I have some feelings about this section, but I want to start with you two. I'm here with Travis and Tom, as always. What did you two think of this section of the game?
Tom, I'll let you go first, and then I'll try and bring the energy since I know you're feeling a little under the weather.
I sound worse than I feel. My opening thought here, which just dawned on me, is that the Snow Cavern is like surprisingly uncreatively named. Everything, we came from Poft and Bask and Kashuan, and there's other fun named things coming up, and this is just a place with snow, which, okay, fine. I don't know, starting out at the beginning, I thought it was cool that we got to meet Joseph, and remember we met him earlier when we were looking for Mithril. And I felt like he got kind of a bad rap. And it was like, yeah, we sent that bum Joseph Mithril, but good for nothing. We haven't heard from him in a long time. And later you get to him and he's like, yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't do it. But you meet up with him again. He joins the party, which is kind of fun. When we were what was it called? Is it Simeon Falls? Is that the place where he hid the snowcraft?
Yeah, it was back in the Cement Falls that we had to go back in there.
Yeah. Cement Falls, that's what it is. I thought it was cool because there was a big glowy rock in there, and I remember walking around that and poking at it and trying to get it to do something the first time we were there. And it was like, okay, I guess this is a nothing burger, whatever. And we left, and it turns out that was the little sign for where there's a hidden cave, and he does some magic and blows out the wall, and you go get the weird. It's like a skiff, or it's got a sail on it or something, and a little wheel. I couldn't quite figure out how it was supposed to be working, but I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, I was like, well, this must be really windy in the snowfield for this little boat on land to move around.
I mean, that's the same thing as land surfing. It's not an uncommon thing.
Yeah, I just need to suspend disbelief a little bit, which is fine. Yeah. I just love how Final Fantasy, maybe I'm wrong, but later Final Fantasies, I feel like you have an airship and you have a chocobo. But in Final Fantasy 2 and even 1, you have a canoe, you have a pirate ship at some point, you've got this snowcraft, there's an airship as well that you move around in.
Lots of vehicles.
Yeah, lots of vehicles. Kind of cool.
Well, I mean, the canoe is kind of a unique thing, and the snowcraft is kind of a unique thing, but usually in most Final Fantasies, you get a ship first before you get the airship. I feel like
a ship on the water, you mean?
Yeah, like a water ship.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, I guess the canoe is kind of the precursor to that, because they were trying to limit you. Again, I wonder, this would be something we'd have to ask Ian. It's could they have really coded in a way to where the entire ocean was usable, and therefore they use the canoe as a precursor to ships, and then limit your ability to travel?
Didn't they do that in the first one? I mean, you don't go anywhere. In this one, we don't have one yet. But it also reminded me a little bit of, in 7, they had that, the dune buggy or whatever. They could drive on sand.
Oh, yeah.
But not. And then also with I think the whole idea here is, and it's a crappy analogy, but in Metroidvania, right, where you get little abilities that unlock parts of the map, I think they're trying to gate you a little bit with, obviously where you can go. And they give you a little bit, right? You can get across rivers now. Oh, maybe you can get across the ocean now. And then eventually, at some point, the airship is sort of the big kahuna. You can go anywhere you want.
Well, that kind of goes back to the article that Larry, you sent earlier, was it today or yesterday, about the programmer.
Yeah.
About the fact that it had no experience on RPGs and had never seen one before in his life, but had been doing coding and programming for other games previously. So that could be where the influence in some of this happens. And that could be the same for a lot of them, to be honestly, because I was thinking about when I was reading this, how many other RPGs were there really before this? And even when I think of them, they're usually first person view thing, like King's Quest or something like that, where you move you don't see your characters or anything. You just move one screen at a time or something like that. So that's why I was like, I wonder, if maybe that's why.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. That one, yeah.
Yeah, it's because Nasir, he came from coding on Apple, and the Square folks really liked his stuff. And when he came and interviewed, they really just jumped on him and was like, "We want you to be part of this." But he had no idea the RPG mechanics, so they're telling him to code all this stuff. He didn't understand what that was, so he did his best. But some of the stuff, it didn't make sense to him, so he coded it differently, which led to some of the bugs in the first round.
Some of it are broken.
Exactly, right, where the things just didn't work. He's like, I don't even know what that means. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a remnant of a bunch of people coming together to emulate D&D in some way, and maybe not everyone knowing what it is. I don't know. There's some quirks to the early Final Fantasies that I think have iterated throughout the series and have become features instead of quirks, which is kind of cool.
There's things about this. So there's a couple things that kind of hit me on this one. Like this section so far was pretty smooth. Nothing too great, grand, or glorious. I still enjoy it, but I think there's a couple things that stood out to me. One was there's a lot of back and forth here. There's a lot of go to this place, now go back.
Yep.
Go to this new place, now go back. Go to this place, now go back. Which gets a little bit tiring. But the other thing that I've realized, this dawned on me, and I have this little note here, that you have to talk to everyone. And I remember this because back in the day when I first started playing RPGs, you literally had to talk to everyone because almost every NPC was put there for a purpose of some sort. Very few of them were legitimate, just fillers. But then as the systems got more robust, more and more filler characters were put in, to the point where I got, in recent games, I don't talk to anyone because 9 times out of 10, they've got next to nothing of any value to say, or they have something so generic. And I see the same, 30 people all have the same response, that I stopped doing it. And I have to remind myself now that back in the day, since they had those limitations, if the NPC is there 9 times out of 10, maybe not that much, but there's a good chance that they have something of value to contribute to at least the story, if anything else.
Yeah, they're going to give you a hint of where to go, right? Yeah.
He took an arrow in the knee over and over and over again in Skyrim.
Right. Like that, Skyrim or any of those Elder Scrolls ones are a great example of there's hundreds of NPCs.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 of them have any value. So you just stop talking to the mass majority of them.
That brings up kind of like an interesting question, though, of what you want from the game, right? Do you want the realism? Because in real life, if you walk up and, bother a bunch of strangers, they're going to either say nothing or tell you to beat it, right? In a game, I think there's some balance to be struck between people that have just some sort of interesting flavor text, but then there needs to be some percentage of them that do something, or that have something for you that represents some promise of further gameplay interest. Because then that's what will get you to talk to everybody, and hopefully if they do a job writing the fluffy text that's like world building and kind of immerses you in the story, even if it's not a quest in and of itself.
I think the team that's kind of balanced it the best for me is Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, where you don't really walk up and talk to the NPCs, but you're running through town and hearing them talk. And the lines don't repeat very much, so it really feels like there's a lot of, it just feels alive. There's interesting things they're saying, but you don't hear it repeat, and you don't have to talk to them. So you kind of just hear it as you run through, and it kind of just fills the flavor.
That's neat.
Yeah, I mean that's one way to approach it, and I think it's a really good, and that's a more realistic way to approach it. Let's be real. Most people are going to be having their conversations, and you're going to run by and you're going to eavesdrop to some degree, or you're going to tune it out and move on. But the ones where they don't do that, I don't know the answer to that, right? I'm trying to think, Baldur's Gate 3 did a pretty good job of doing the world building where you didn't eavesdrop, but everyone had something to say, and it felt like you got something valuable, even if they weren't giving you a quest. I felt like they were giving something valuable about the world and not just the same thing going over and over again. Now, granted, Larian probably went to not probably. We know they went to extremes to make that game.
Yeah, that was going to be my counterpoint, is how much money and budget and time they spent writing their faces off.
Right. And, I understand that that's not doable for everything, but then that leads into a bigger conversation about, is when these big companies like EA and everything are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these games, are they spending that money in the right place?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But anyways, it's an interesting thing, and I don't think there's multiple ways to go about it. And the thing is I'm going to have one opinion of what I think they should be. Tom, you're going to have a different opinion. Larry's going to have a different one. Anthony's going to have a different one. And every other person in the world is going to have a different threshold of what they do and won't accept. So it's kind of a weird rabbit hole of how do you approach it. But it's just one of those things that I have to remind myself that back in this time period, most NPCs they literally had to plan a legitimate reason for them to be there to some degree. So I have to remind myself I need to talk to more people, because I remember last time we had this conversation, there was someone, you guys all like, this guy had this thing to say, and I'm like, who? What? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
clearly, I think we were talking about Gordon, of all people.
It was Gordon, yeah,
and,
exactly.
I guess you didn't suffer for it. Presumably, he showed up when he was supposed to.
Okay, so that explains so much, because it was kind of funny, right? Because when he joined when I ran into him in the tower, or whatever you want to call it, I was just like, I was like, Gordon. I was like, suspect? I was like, dude, literally, I just ran into this random dude who I've never seen her talk to. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I want to help you out. I'm like, bullshit. You're going to help me out? You're going to stab me in the back or some shit. And then I get back to the castle. I'm like, wait, why is he sitting in the other throne? Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, what did I miss?
Well, yeah, Scott's brother, right? The guy who gives you the ring. Dying, brother, yeah.
Yeah, totally missed that shit, right? Because I was literally like, oh, this is really suspect that this random dude is here at this freaking place. And, no one else could get in here, but he's just chilling here.
That's what I think that's interesting, though. And this is very different than the game I'm about to mention. But in Witcher 3, you could just miss side quests. You could miss people and just not get big chunks of lore. So this is very minor, where you just don't run into that guy and realize, oh, he's the brother that guy was talking about. Yeah. And it doesn't fill in that piece. So it's nice that it's optional and that you can miss it. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a great example of how much content was made that they expected and wanted people to miss, because the people who found it would just enrich their gameplay. So it's interesting that just missing that one NPC kind of changed your orientation towards that whole sequence, where you're like, this guy's gonna fucking kill me. Isn't that what's gonna happen here?
Well, I was like, I don't trust this motherfucker at all, is what I was thinking. I was sitting here waiting for some shiesty stuff that happened somewhere in the dungeon for him to flip on me. And next thing you know, I'm back at not even the castle, but back at that inn in Altair, and it's like he's just sitting there in the throne room chilling. I'm like, wait, what? What did I miss here?
Well, no, this is his big character arc, right? Because before that, he was too afraid to even show himself to the princess to volunteer to help with the effort. That's right. Now he has a change of heart and helps us in the keep. And now he's been put in the king's dying wish is to put him in command of the armies. Good for him.
Well, I think all of this speaks to how interesting the story is to me. Everything you've just talked about and all the other stuff that we experienced in this, and what's coming up next with, I guess we're going to face some wyverns or some dragons or something. Dragoons, thank you. I'm like, dragons? Yeah. So dragoons, there's just so much happening here that's so interesting, and things that, I like Final Fantasy 1. It was very straightforward D&D copy. This is adding really cool layers. And I know this is maybe the black sheep of the Final Fantasy family, but I'm really enjoying this quite a bit. And it's interesting, Travis, remember, I don't think I'm misremembering this. At a certain point in Final Fantasy 12, we're in an airship and we throw something into the engine to blow it up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens here. The main plot point here is that we're retrieving the Sunfire and we're taking it to the Dreadnought to throw it into their engine and blow it up.
So I'm trying to remember. I feel like that's kind of the Sunfire or some sort of magical thing has always been kind of the heart of the airships. Like the airships, the funny thing is, this is what I find hilarious, right? Is I see the images of the airships in Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2, and immediately I was like, this looks like the airship that I saw in the original Final Fantasy 7. Like is it a little more pixelated? 100%. But the outline, the layout, everything else about it is freaking identical, man. I was just like, so I'm like, I kind of feel like they've just kept that whole trend across all of it. And you and I have already discussed this. Like, I know I'm going to go through all the pixel remasters. So at one point in time, I'm going to know the answer to whether or not this just continues to be a thing.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
But in a way, the airships are another version of the chocobos.
Yeah. Right. Well, just, some conceit to get you around. And the idea of the Metroidvania is interesting because beyond, nice airship there. Yes, exactly right, Tom. He just threw an airship into our Discord that reminds me, honestly, of the airships from Super Mario Bros. 3 a little bit as well.
That is the artwork for the airship in Final Fantasy 2.
The artwork from this era is beautiful. Like
the
pixel remaster, if you go in through the gallery, there's a lot of this really great, almost colored pencil or watercolor art, hand drawn. God, beautiful. Yeah. Life before AI. Like it's imperfect. It's beautiful. But yeah, I felt like this. The thing about this game being so spread apart, like you're talking about, Travis, where you have to like come back to the central hub and then go off this direction, like walk completely northwest on the map to then wrap around to the southeast and then come up a different direction. It's almost artificially like gating you from just completing this quickly because it's not a very big map. And then further on top of that is the insane encounter rate where just every 15 seconds you're just in another battle and it just slows you down. But I did want to talk quickly about the leveling system, how we're feeling about it now, having gotten further into the game. How's it striking you now?
I mean, I still find it a little janky overall. Here's the thing. If I did not have the ability to use the auto battle thing, I think I'd be more pissed off with it at this point in time. Mostly because of the encounter rate and because of the fact that the leveling just seems so slow, especially when it comes to weapon usage.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But I did find a massive advantage to this to some degree, and it's only because of the auto battling. So I don't know about the two of you. But again, and I put this in there in the chat earlier, like, oh, I guess I'm going to start grinding now. But I didn't grind in the way that I normally do. I was auto battling with my characters on defend to get my evasion rate up. Maxed it out, and now I can run around dual wielding weapons on all my characters and still have my evasion at the max.
Does that mean you got shields up to 10?
No. I got my evasion up to level 16, and with all my stuff on it, it's at 16 by 99%. 16 is the max level on it, and so now when if I put a shield on and take a shield off, my evasion is still level 16 times 99% with or without the shield. So the shield does not provide me any additional functional advantage that I can tell, except for additional defense to where when I do get hit, I would take less damage, but it doesn't mean I still get hit just as often with or without the shield. So now I'm rolling around like Furian's running around with 2 swords. Maria's running around with 2 staves, and then Guy's running around with 2 knives. So
the evasion only goes up when you defend?
Evasion only goes up when you get attacked. Yeah. So it works just like all the other ones. It only works when it happens. So like your hit points, from what I can tell, just kind of go up on. I don't know.
You take damage.
I think it's part of it, but I also think it still kind of goes up even without that, because, for example, the whole time that I was doing that, literally I wasn't getting hit. I was blocking or dodging every attack. Yeah. So I took 0 damage, but my hit points were still going up with some regularity. So I don't know if you actually have to take damage so much as you just need a physical attack to come at you.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. I've got my screen open now. My guys, I don't know what I'm doing different, but I only have 1x by 99% in my evasion.
Yeah, mine are both at 16 by 99, or all three of mine are at 16 by 99. And all I did was just use the auto battle to run around outside Altair and just every battle just put all of them on defend, hit auto battle, and just let it go until the mobs ran away.
Oh, I was going to ask you how you ended the battle. So they just flee at a certain point.
Yeah, they eventually, all of them will try and flee. And it takes some of the battles, like if you get like 6 of them there, the battle will take you like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but you're building up.
But that's the whole point, is I'm trying to get my evasion to go up, so I'm like, I don't care. So literally today while I was working, I just had my Steam Deck rolling with those while I was working, and every once in a while I'd move my character when the battle's over, or hit the X to get through the menus, move my character around for like 10 seconds or 3 seconds, get another freaking encounter, hit the auto battle, go again. And so now I can run around dual wielding across the board.
What's your game clock up to?
I don't know. Let me hold on a second. Let me get my Steam Deck and I'll tell you.
I feel like while you're doing that, I feel like this is kind of the interesting part about, like Elden Ring, for example, where you just have different builds or whatever. Thinking about Final Fantasy 1, where the idea is to run different parties, like 4 white mages or whatever the hell you want to do. This one, I feel like the variety comes from how do you want to level up? What do you want to focus on? So you're focused on evasion. I'm more balanced. I do what you said sometimes, but then I end the battle by killing the enemies. The level up the magic or level up the weapons.
That's mostly what I've been doing too. Yeah. I'm trying to keep and it's not, they're not high, but the magic spells, I've been trying to level them equally. So whichever one is the lowest is the one I'm using, and I'm trying to keep Fire, Blizzard, and Thunder kind of on equal footing. Thunder just hit 5, and Fire's about to hit 5, and Blizzard's at 4 right now.
Yeah, I think I just got Cure up to 5, and the rest of mine are at 3 or 4.
Funny, my Cure is only. Oh, actually, but that's because I don't do a lot of Cure with. Furion's my main Cure person, and yeah, that Cure's up to 3. I got a lot of, we can talk to it later when we get to the Dreadnought, but I got a lot of work out of Isuna there. There was a ton of stuff that was given status effects.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know what? I was in the menus. I think I was halfway through the Dreadnought. I was like, I don't have Ether, so I want to make sure I'm managing my magic or my MP, but I need to use Isuna. So I was like, use it on each character. And then I finally realized, I need to hit left on the D-pad, and it does all at once.
It doesn't work any worse, and it doesn't cost any extra magic. That was the one thing about that mechanic that's a little funny, is I would have thought there should have been some penalty.
Yeah, right. And there's not.
Like seems to not be.
Yep. There is with things that do damage or heal. So, for example, if you use your heal on a single character, right, you can heal for like 300. I think my heals are like 5 or 6. You heal for 300, 400, between 300 and 400. If you do it for everyone, the penalty is you heal for the 300, but it's divided across all the characters.
That makes sense.
Right. It's the same thing like with the magic. Like the one turtles, I can't remember which ones, but I was using my Blizzard that's level 6, and it was hitting them for between 700 and 800. But then when I would flip it to do a pack of 6, it was hitting them all between like around 120, 130. So
that makes sense.
So there is some bit deficit, and I think they did that specifically with ones that have numbers associated with it. It's kind of hard to be like, how do you do something with Asuna where there's no numbers associated with it? The only thing I think of is maybe if there was a percentage of a failure rate, that then maybe they could increase that, but I don't think they went to that level.
Yeah. What is interesting about it is it doesn't cure all status effects, it cures one. And so if your guy has 2 things wrong with them, they need it twice, which I thought was cool.
I wonder, did you try that when you just targeted it? Because I think when I targeted just one character and they had multiple effects, it cured more than one.
Maybe that's the difference then, because when you do, if you try and do all of them, and I was mostly doing it after a battle, like as cleanup. And I could, if everybody was blind, I could get all of them. But then if one person had like venom or whatever, you can't. You get the little like rebuff sound effect. It won't let you use it on all of them again. You can only use it on one person then to if there's only one person that's affected, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So my playtime's a little over 8 hours.
Oh, okay. That's
right.
Where's yours at, Tom?
Like 6:15.
Interesting. I'm at 4:58.
Wow.
So I'm just the lowest.
Are you boosting?
I've actually turned the boost off.
You don't need it, right?
I did boost for Gil, and then I did boost for HP, and that's it. And then I eventually turned them both off because I'm not dying. I have max Gil at this point, so I was like, all right.
Gosh, you have max Gil.
But then I don't do anything with it. There's nothing to buy. I haven't really purchased anything.
Overpriced either, but that's about all I can think of.
The only thing that I've really spent on is gear when I need it, and the ends, which I've discovered the ends, they have to be a percentage of whatever Gil you have.
With how much money you have.
Oh, absolutely. Because you need to have, at the beginning it was like 5 Gil, and now it's like 600 or whatever.
At the same place. And it's also depending on how many people you have in your party too. Because I tested this out when I had one of the guest ones in there. I went in there, it was like 500 in Altair, and then went in and immediately after they had Gordon had left, I went back to the end just to test it, and it had dropped to 300. Oh. So it's smart enough to be like percentage and number of party members.
Yeah.
Do you guys like that mechanic?
I go back and forth because I always, like, for example, in Final Fantasy 1, I was always going back to the starting town.
Absolutely.
Those motel accommodations.
Yep.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm kind of sitting there going, yeah, that makes sense why they do it. Because there's two ways to approach it, right? Either they do it as a percentage, or they do it to where there's a cap on how much it can heal you for at an end because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was exploiting the system when I was going back to the first village in Final Fantasy 1. I'm okay with it because at the same time, although here's the thing, I don't know what it is when I get to the cap on Gil because I haven't gotten there, and it might get to the point where it's better to buy the cottage and just use that than what it would be to use the inn.
Yeah, I mean, it seems fair, right? Like, if it's capped at a percentage, then it's always relative to how much money you have. It's the same hit, which seems to be never an amount of money that I care about.
Yeah.
I don't find myself going there that often either. Once you have curing magic, it's basically just once you exhaust your mage's MP, that's why you're there.
Exactly.
I forget it half the time. Like, I've ran into, for example, I was running around doing everything, and then I ran straight into the Dreadnought, and I was like, shit, I haven't been in an inn since before I freaking got the information on the Dreadnought the first time I took off for flight. I was like, oh shit. Oh well, I guess I'm just going to have to kind of make my way through it. So
I want to talk about this too, because that sort of happened to me. At one point in, what's the middle thing that we did? The keep.
The keep with the
keep, yeah.
Kashan keep.
Yeah. There was like, and I this is going back to my proclamation that I was just going to let Final Fantasy II take care of me. Going to play it and not think about it too hard. And so far it's been fine. At one point I did get, and I think it was because the reason this happened, kind of got bogged in the corner where my guys were starting to get a little rough, and I was out of MP because I was just like draining it, trying to level the spells. And then it was like, oh man, I don't want to have to walk through this whole freaking dungeon with this encounter rate to get all the way back out. And it's kind of a hike to get from the keep to the nearest, I think it's Bafsk you have to go back to if you want to heal up there. So I turned the encounters off, and I felt a little guilty about it, but it was like, whatever. That was the one place that I feel like I had to kind of goof the game, where if we were playing like hardcore mode or whatever, I would have gotten I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
I went to do that in the Dreadnought, and surprise, you can't leave.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm glad I bought those 2 ethers, because it's the only way I'm going to get out of this alive.
Well, that's why in the Dreadnought I was managing the MP because I have not purchased ether yet, and I was like, well, I have no way to refill my MP, so I better be careful because some of the enemies that you encounter, you cannot attack them physically. I mean, sometimes if you get a crit, it can work, but otherwise it's just gotta be magic.
That was that was the only place I started to feel it was in the Dreadnought. There was like I can't remember the name of it, but it was an ogre looking thing. It's tall as
that's right.
Big ass one.
Yep.
Yeah, those guys. Were
Sorry,
giving me a little bit of trouble where I was just like, okay, my 3 physical attack people are just going to bounce off this guy over and over, occasionally get a critical, and then Maria's just like throwing thunderstorms at it like nobody.
So there's something that I discovered because while I was doing that, all my characters can do some level of attack magic. Most of them are shitty, right? Like Guy is obviously my primary black mage, but Furion can do like his is like level 2 or 3 across the board, whereas Guy is like level 6 at this point in time.
Guy is your mage?
Yeah, I made Guy as my mage.
I
have a Guy factoid when you're done.
What I was doing at one point in time is even with Furion, I was still attacking physically with him, knowing I was like, okay, if I get lucky, I get some a crit, I'll do some damage. And then at one point in time, his weapon skill leveled up, and then every time he was doing damage. So I almost feel like there's a threshold of where your skill ability has to be able to do it. The turtles was another good example because when you're in Kashan Keep, the turtle is like the first, it's like the boss.
Yeah.
And literally none of my stuff did, like none of my attacks would do it. It was all magic.
Yep, exactly.
But now all of my characters, I think my melee skills are 6 or 7. 6, I think. And now I don't have to use magic on any of the turtles. Because even when I ran into him at first in the Dreadnought, it was the same thing. I kept attacking him physically and it would do 0 damage. And then when Furion's went from 5 to 6, all of a sudden he started consistently doing damage to them. So I think there's a cutoff point where you can override their negation.
Well, I've read somewhere too that the enemies in this game have they have some kind of like attack class system, because you'll notice that your progression when you're just fighting like the kind of nobody things, you don't progress. Like your skill with X, Y, and Z, it doesn't advance. And then when you get to the new area and you're fighting guys, suddenly then it goes up like gangbusters. And I think it's what you're talking about, that if you're fighting things at a lower attack class than you, it doesn't count very much towards anything. I'm sort of convinced that it doesn't count at all. Like if you just roamed around Altair and just fought the same hornets and snakes or whatever over and over, I don't think you would ever advance the meter.
Yeah, I was going to say at one point in time I was at 5 and it just didn't progress any farther. Like I got to 5 pretty quickly and then it just didn't do shit. And then at one point in time in the Dreadnought, it finally went, I noticed it went from 5 to 6. And then after that, it just stopped again.
Yeah.
Like just nothing. And then I went back up in that area again to fight the same level stuff. And I noticed that no matter how much time I stay there, the weapon skills don't go up whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like they randomly get assigned some sort of increase. I was stuck on like 7 1/4 forever. It just would not budge. And I was like, what the hell? Which I don't know, based on what we talked about at the beginning, maybe it's good because, someone has said once you get to level 10, then it gets really difficult in some way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how, but I can see that comment. I think Travis pulled it up from the first podcast, which was, you can level everything up to 16 or whatever, but you have to no life it for years. Like it just doesn't level up. And I can see that now of how long I spent at 7 1/4 was really, really long time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. There's so much nuance to the game. And it's so, again, I'm just flabbergasted how much nuance there is for a game that's, this old, really.
Yeah. So we skipped a little bit around in the story, but what did you think of? I commented on this in the Discord a little bit, but the end of the Snow Keep was kind of fun, or the Snow Cavern, I guess we'll call it. You have the Indiana Jones scene.
Yeah.
With what's the dude's name? Borgin.
Yeah. Where you fight him at the end.
He like has a booby trap for you, and you like kill him, and it's like, I'll be waiting for you in hell.
Yep. But then Joseph like stops the ball, like
somehow.
Yep. And then dies in the process.
Yeah.
No.
Which is a little.
Oh yeah, sorry.
They all do it. Have you noticed that they all do the friggin' Obi-Wan Kenobi move where they like are out of existence?
Yep, exactly.
And then they had the note. I was like, death equals disappearing, I guess.
Exactly.
He died. He starts blinking and fades into nothingness. I'm like, okay, so everyone when they die, they just fade into nothing. Good to know.
I guess it makes sense because when they did the remake of this game for the Game Boy Advance, there was a second storyline where the characters who die, Minwan, the mage, is there. Minwoo, thank you. Minwoo is there. Well, I don't know if that character dies, but the Wikipedia was saying that this story is like 4 people on the other side, basically, of the veil, like in death, are having this battle experience when you are having yours at the same time. So yeah, maybe they don't die; they just disappear and go through the veil to the other side.
Crazy.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That was like kind of aggressive from Borgin for like a dude that we had no. It wasn't like there was some long-standing thing or we was like, screw you assholes.
Yep.
And he wasn't even that hard to beat either, which is kind of funny.
He was not.
But yeah, and then he rolls over Joseph, and Joseph dies. And Joseph's reluctant girlfriend, who was too afraid to go in the house to get in his way, selflessly volunteers to care for his child for the rest of her life.
So sweet. So sweet.
I know.
Has anyone have we figured out who the Dark Knight is when Maria keeps saying, "I know that voice"?
Oh yeah, that pinged me because it's Maria that says it and Leon's right.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, so.
Yeah, when he said that in a second, I saw like I know that voice. I was like, okay, that is her brother. Well, sweet, we found him.
I had that spoiled a little bit for me because I was looking. So I was looking up the wiki page for Guy because I was like, is there some dumb lore reason for why he can't talk good? And there is.
It keeps happening.
There is. It's because he was raised by animals.
Oh, what the fuck?
And you say what the fuck, but think back and recall the critical scene earlier in the game where he talks to a gopher.
Oh, in the beaver, right?
Yeah, the beaver. Sorry. Yeah.
That's right.
Because he speaks animal.
Yeah, when he gets the when you get the goddess bell, you're talking to the beaver, and it gives you the goddess bell before the turtle in the Snow Cavern.
I don't remember. I don't
You
remember this
the
at all.
room full of beavers?
No, I didn't talk to him.
What?
Wait, how'd you get the goddess bell then?
What do you mean? You walk through the wall?
Well, yeah, you walk through the wall.
They have to open it for you.
Yeah.
No, I just walked straight into the wall and it was open.
But you need the goddess bell later, didn't we?
No, he said he just walked through the wall. We talked to the critters and they opened or quote unquote opened. Apparently the pathway is there the whole time, I guess.
No, not that one. I don't mean that one. I mean at the keep. When you go to Kashwan Keep, when you're going north to go open the door, you need to use the goddess bell to open the door.
Yeah, but you get the goddess bell in that in the snow caves.
I know, from the beaver.
What he's saying is that he got it without talking to the beaver. He just walked out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it. So you're like, fuck these animals.
You're talking about the room where there's water and there's a bunch of like things sitting in there, and you can walk to the wall to the far right. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I just walked in and walked through the wall. I didn't talk to the little fuckers.
How dare you? They were there to talk to you. They've been waiting the whole game for you.
You're blowing my mind here. You spend hours wandering around fighting garbage shit for random stats, but you won't even talk to the characters of the game.
No, because sometimes when you talk to the characters, it turns into a fight. And since there's so many freaking encounters anywhere, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you little fuckers, and end up having to fight another thing and then walk 5 feet and get in another fight. So I'm not going to, when I'm out in the world, not in a town, I ain't talking to shit, so I don't get stuck in an extra fight that I don't want to deal with.
I think
It would
that's
be
so
funny if you get to fight all the beavers.
Oh my god, that's so interesting because it's like this weird looking thing, like that looks different than everything else. I was just like, what's happening over here?
No, man.
When I walked in there, I looked at it and I'm like, what the fuck are these things? I ain't gonna find out, because with my luck, I'm gonna talk to it, it's gonna turn into a monster, and I'm gonna have to fight him again. So I just walked up, walked to the wall, walked through it, and went on my merry little way.
That's hilarious.
Well, you missed Guy speaking whatever they speak, and he talks to animals, and that's why he is a simpleton when he speaks English. But on that same Wikipedia page, Guy defending Maria while he gets attacked by Leon, who I assume is in the guise of the, Dark Lord or Dark Knight or whatever his name is. But it was like, why would Leon attack? I was like, oh, wait, he hit his head or something, and he's evil.
Oh yeah, exactly. What's the MacGuffin to turn him evil? I guess we'll find that out because it's got to be Leon. I mean, yeah. I think you said that you saw that, so yeah. Oh boy. So what's next? What's next is, if we want to kind of do 3 pieces again, we've got Layla, Dragoons, and Diced. We've got the Colosseum, and then we've got Retaking Castle Finn. What do you think? Tackle those 3?
Sure.
So far, it's been really reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. It's been nicely paced. All right, so let's do that. Anything else for the good of this podcast?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. Tom?
I'm looking through my screenshots and seeing if there was anything else that I found notable. It was fun blowing up the airship. That was really satisfying. It was what the most satisfying part about that is you didn't have to fucking walk back to the beginning.
I swear to God, dude.
Said that.
Thank God. As soon as that blew up, I was like, I gotta run out of this motherfucker, and then it just did automatically. It's like, this is the best game ever.
In Kashan, after you got to the top with the Sunfire, you had to walk your ass all the way back out.
I teleported, man. I was like, fuck this. I'm out. I did not.
I forgot all about that.
Teleport on yourself. Get the fuck out of there.
There's like teleport and warp, and I keep reading the descriptions of and they confuse me, and I just give up. And so I haven't done either of them.
Oh yeah, teleport's great. So yeah, get out of there.
All right.
But yeah, the auto. Yes, every podcast we got to have a tip for each other. But yeah, the auto walking, I was like, oh, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. I actually set the Steam Deck down, like, oh, thank God, I can just turn my brain off. I'm done. I'm fucking done.
Yep, exactly. All right.
Wait. Oh, there's one thing. You guys got the Chocobo ride, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
When I happened to have the sound off, and then I got on the Chocobo, I was like, they're probably playing the Chocobo music. I need to turn this music up.
They are.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah. It was so good. I'm surprised how quickly I am just becoming a super fan of the Final Fantasy series in my mid or early 40s.
Do we know if the Chocobo does anything else? Because like it seems right in the other games you can park him. Like even in Final Fantasy Adventure, he like waits for you. And in this one, like with the airship, it's like, all right, you got where you're going, and the thing like pieces out, which is fine, I guess. But then anytime you want to use it, you got to hike your way out to the pure ass spot to find it.
I don't know about the Chocobo. My assumption is the airship. The reason why that is the case is because it's Sid's, and he hasn't like joined your group, so to say.
Give him the fucking ship back.
Yeah, so I'm going to assume at some point in time we're going to get someone who quote unquote joins the resistance, and therefore we're going to have a permanent airship. That's my assumption, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm actually reading the first bullet on the Coliseum number 8. It says, using Layla's ship, head to the Coliseum. So I'm assuming that Layla is one of those people that we pick up, and maybe she has a ship, and that becomes a permanent fixture in our group. Not that she's like fighting with the team, but
yeah,
you now have a ship. Okay, never mind. Literally, the first bullet point: go outside and get on the boat. After a quick fight, she'll join the team, and you have a ship.
Well, there you go. You knew it ahead of time. You just suspected it was going to happen.
Next week, it's Wervins and Crab Dragoons.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, dragons, great!" Oh, I read that a little too fast.
Dragoons, it's usually a warrior class. They're the ones that jump really high with spears and then come down and obliterate everything in front of them.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you like us, please rate us on your podcast service of choice and tell your friends. And we will be back next week to talk more Final Fantasy II.